high glory in the name, though now by slavery's minions hissed and covered o'er with shame. It is a spell of light and power, the watchword of the free, who spurs it in the trial hour. A craven soul is he. I am an abolitionist, oppression's deadly foe. In God's great strength will I resist and lay the monster low. In God's great name do I demand to all be freedom given, that peace and joy may fill the land and songs go up to heaven. Thank you all for coming, ladies. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, the 14th. Mary, don't forget the knitting patterns for the socks. We'll need to get a good collection started for the next set of arrivals. Sarah, bundle up now. It's cold out there. Fight the good fight, ladies. Knitting patterns to save the world. Hurrah. Oh, hello. Welcome. I don't remember seeing you here before.
First time coming. Just got here from New York. Mr. George Benson said there was a meeting I might enjoy, but it looks like I got here a little late.
You've come all the way from New York.
Not all in one day, but yes. I've been on the road a fair spell. I thought this might be a place I could stop a while, but now I'm not so sure.
Why's that?
I was expecting better accommodations. This place isn't much to look at, and it's colder than the inside of a whale bucket.
The Northampton Association lives simply. It's true. We are a community of hard work and equality, not luxury and worldly comforts.
Sometimes hard work comes easier to the hands when the body is wrapped up in a bit of worldly comfort. But I suppose I'll stay. For now.
You're welcome to stay as long as you like. My name is Olive Gilbert. My family were among the founders of the association. I hope to learn from what we're doing here and plant similar communities all across the country.
I go by Sojourner. I was born Isabella and folks called me Belle, but God gave me a new name when I started a new life.
Sojourner, one who travels without a permanent home.
That's right. Hope to have a home someday, but for now I walk all over just like Jesus.
Well, Sojourner, I hope you will take a temporary respite from your journey here with us. Please have a seat.
I suspect you have chores to do, Miss Gilbert, and it's been a fair spell since breakfast, so if you point me to the kitchen and put me to work, I can be more used than sitting in this here chair.
You won't be asked to work any more than the rest of us. We share the burden equally here.
I expect there's enough work for all.
Indeed, but you must be tired from your travels. You rest now, and we'll find you a place to contribute in the morning.
Miss Gilbert, the longer we jaw about it, the louder my stomach's going to complain. What needs doing?
Why don't we both sit and peel these potatoes? That way we'll be both useful and at rest.
I'm capable of peeling potatoes without supervision, Miss Gilbert.
Of course you are, but this was my job for tonight. And quite frankly, I'm not very good at it, and I'd appreciate the help. And please call me Olive.
You sure that's what you want? Most white women don't want a Negro sitting at their table, never mind calling her by her Christian name.
Since you found your way here, you must know that's not how we believe. It is our aim to create a society which the rights of all are equal without distinction. I am a firm believer in the abolitionist cause.
Believing that black folks shouldn't be slaves isn't the same as inviting us all to dinner.
It is to me.
You sure? Singing a nice song about to all be freedom given in a place where everybody feels the same as you doesn't really change anything, does it?
I have felt the forces of opposition.
Have you? Your sleep been troubled by the woes of the poor darkies in the faraway South? Or have your hands got dirty doing real work, Miss Gilbert?
I don't appreciate what you're implying. I have done real work, and I plan on doing much more. And while I may not have suffered as much as you, I've seen plenty. My friend Prudence Crandall ran a school down in Connecticut for young black women.
A school just for black girls?
No, not at first, but that's what it became. The students and those of us who supported the school were followed in the streets, taunted, threatened, pelted with rotten food. Prudence's drinking well was contaminated with animal feces. During lessons, the townspeople shot firearms, blew horns, threw rocks through the windows, and finally they passed laws forbidding blacks from entering the state for education, and enrollment dropped to the point of non-existence. Prudence was arrested and jailed.
You arrested too?
No, I escaped. But just barely, and continued to mobilize protesters. We met in the Benson home. You've spoken with Mr. George Benson. Well, he helped us relocate here to continue our work. His daughter Sarah is a dear friend of mine who lives here too. This isn't a passing fancy for me. I believe with all my soul that everyone should have the same opportunity under the law, regardless of gender or color or
potato peeling ability.
Or that. A manifesto of protestation of the treatment of dark-skinned humanity. That's terrible. A proclamation. A statement of belief. No, no one will listen to a manifesto from me. No one knows who I am. A letter to the editor of The Liberator. Now, that might be a place to start.
You might add cornmeal to that shopping list.
This is not a shopping list. This is literature. I'm working on my writing.
You don't know your letters yet.
What? No, I'm a grown woman. Don't be ridiculous. Of course I know my letters. No, I'm a writer. It's what I do. I've written heaps of poems, the beginning of a novel, and now I'm working on a manifesto. A proclamation.
What are you trying to proclaim exactly?
The plight of the slaves, the work of the Underground Railroads, the ideals of freedom and justice and, everything. I want the eloquence of my words to stir hearts and minds.
There's not too many people going to hear a proclamation from that little piece of paper. You'd be better going outside and standing on a stump.
I'm going to publish it so thousands of people all across the country will read it, rise up, and it will be my name on the bottom line.
What have you got so far?
3 crossed out sentences and an ink splotch.
Maybe you need to try something else for a while. I know Miss Sarah could use some company. She's feeling mighty poorly today.
Still? I'll bring her some tea. Someday, Sojourner, I'll find the right words. You wait and see, and then it will be my name in the papers with Susan Anthony's and William Garrison's and edict. An educational edict eradicating egg sandwiches.
We are going home, we've had visions bright of that holy land, that world of light, where the long dark night of time is past, and the morn of eternity is come at last, where the weary saints no more shall roam, but dwell in a sunny and peaceful home, where the proud celestial gems shall crown, and waves of bliss are dashing round. Oh, that beautiful home. Oh, that beautiful world. Oh, I do love to sing. Having those glad songs of heaven rumbling around inside me makes the work lighter and the days faster.
Did you read about Jonathan Walker?
He the ship captain that tried to help those slaves escape in Florida.
Yes. It says here he's been convicted and imprisoned. They branded his hand with the letters SS for slave stealing.
Oh, slave savior.
Exactly. There are people out there suffering for their beliefs, making a difference in the world, and what am I doing? I'm hanging laundry, writing piles of rejected manuscripts, and I'm watching my friend die.
You're not hanging much laundry that I can see. It's sad for us, but Miss Sarah will be seeing her Savior soon.
How do you know that, Sojourner? How can you be sure?
Miss Sarah loves Jesus, and he loves her for sure. He's waiting on her up in that beautiful home.
I just sit there, by her bed, holding her hand. There's nothing I can do. I feel so useless. I'm not making a difference anywhere.
You are doing something. You were sitting there by her bed and holding her hand.
But what's the point of it all? Sarah is good through and through to her soul. Why doesn't God heal her?
Miss Sarah might be one of the few white folks I know that truly understand suffering. That Captain Walker, he might be another. Go get that Bible and open it to Romans 5.
I don't really feel like a Bible study right now.
God's word tops your feelings. Go on now. Therefore, we rejoice. Go ahead, read it.
Therefore, we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God, but not only so, we rejoice in tribulation, for we know that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost which is given unto us.
Somehow God uses suffering to make the love in our hearts bigger. Don't you see the bigness of Sarah's love? It's her suffering that's been caused that.
That's a horrible system. It's cruel. What he must think of me.
God knows how you feel whether you shake your tiny little fist or not. Times were when I was a slave, I would look around at the darkness and pain on every end, and I would rail at God and demand he starts fixing this mess he's made. He already knows how we feel, and he loves us anyway. And he loves Miss Sarah.
I know that. I do, but I still feel
angry. I know that feeling, believe me. All those years of being treated like nothing. Child, I want to kill them. I want to kill all the white folks. I thought I'd be doing God a favor since all the evil I could see in the world seemed to be coming from the whites. I had enough anger in my heart to fill an ocean.
What changed?
That's a long story, and it would take more telling than we have time for right now. Woo! Look at those clouds. Looks like we'll be taking all this back inside.
Another wasted afternoon.
There you are. Mr. Benson's been looking high and low for you.
I can't face it, Sojourner. I can't bear to be in there with her anymore. Not after everything that's happened today.
I heard some rumors. Why don't you tell me what's going on?
The association is dissolving. We can't sustain ourselves on the silk farm. There just aren't enough of us to keep things running.
Well, nothing good on earth lasts forever, that's certain.
We were supposed to be a model for the rest of the country. A utopia where everything was peaceful and fair and just, and we didn't even last 5 years.
That's as may be. But no place I've ever been has given me the same equality of feeling, liberty of thought, and largeness of soul as my time here.
That's kind of you to say. But it doesn't change the fact that we failed, that I've invested nearly 5 years of my life, and it's changed nothing.
You can't know the difference you make in the world until you step outside it, Olive. You just focus on your next step and leave the rest up to God.
What next step? I have no idea what I'm supposed to do now.
Me neither. That just means we're supposed to wait and pray. He'll show us when he's ready. Why don't you go read me that new poem you've been working on?
What's the use? It's not very good.
It'll take your mind off things. Go on now.
For Sarah. The play of light and shadow on your brow while curtains blow softly, soft. The dance of your white hands as they tremble in your lap. The whisper of your breath so light yet lingering. None of these tell your story, but give them, friend. I am greedy, and they are all that is left of you.
That's the same way I felt when I was sold away from my mama. All those little things that made her real, that's what I wanted to hold on to.
Well, tell me about her. What do you remember?
I remember her hands, hard and cracked, stained with hard work and rough, but so gentle when she touched my face. A deep, deep voice when she sang to us, and she was always singing. We called her Mama Bet, and Papa was Bomb-Free. That's from the Dutch for tree, because he was so tall and straight. They probably had 10 or 12 children, but most of them were sold off before I was born. I remember my brother Peter, though, named my own boy after him. He was full of mischief, always getting in trouble for being in just the wrong place at the wrong time. He was lucky Colonel Hardenbow wasn't a hard master.
Hardenbow?
Yeah, he died. Yes, he died before I was born. He died before I was sold off, and my family was torn apart. I remember shortly before we were sold off, Mama Bet sitting in the garden with tears in her eyes. Belle, I want you to remember something. Hold it in your heart and remember it always. There is a God who hears you and sees you. I was surprised. I didn't know there was a such thing as God. I asked her where he lived. He lives in the sky, she told me. And whenever you are cruelly beaten or cruelly treated or fall into any trouble, you must ask help of him, and he will always hear and help you. She told me not to lie and not to steal and to obey my master. Sometimes she would point to the stars and say, "Those are the same stars, and that is the same moon that looks down upon your brothers and sisters, in which they see, though they are ever so far away from us and each other." I remembered her words all my life, and I think of my dear mama every time I look to the sky.
Sojourner, have you ever told anyone your story before? About Mama Bet and Bumfrey and how you came to be free and you changed your name?
Bits and pieces here and there.
But you should tell it all. It needs to be told. You could inspire so many people. Give them hope.
The Lord is the one who gives hope.
That's part of your story too, isn't it?
Probably the only part that matters.
Here, write down your story, all of it. You could start tonight. I could help you.
Write it down. You mean in a book, like Frederick Douglass did? The narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave.
Why not? Your story is just as important as his. I know I want to hear it, and I'm sure many others will too.
I'm no Frederick Douglass. I'm just a poor black woman from Ulster County.
Which is exactly why your story needs to be told. You're relatable. If you could start a new life, so can others who were born into suffering just as you were. Sojourner, if we can do this, if we can tell your story in a way that brings attention to the plight of the slave, you could become a voice for a new generation of black men and women. You could change people's lives.
Seems like I've heard that somewhere before.
And if we can publish it, you could sell some copies and make yourself some money. I hear Frederick Douglass has done well for himself with his book.
Do you think if enough people bought the book, I could buy a place of my own, a place for me and my children to settle in?
Why not?
All my life I've been somebody else's property, somebody else's idea. Who I was told to me. I didn't get to decide for myself. Even my name was somebody else's. Neely's Belle, Dumont's Belle. I want to be my own Belle. I want to be the one who decides who I am. My story. But you're the writer, not me. I can do the writing, but you'll have to do the telling.
Well, are you sure? I mean, I'd be honored to help, of course.
All right. I guess maybe we found our next step. All right. The narrative of Sojourner Truth.
Okay, pick up where you left off. I can add the part about Mama later.
I was 9 years old when I was sold to Mr. John Neely for $100 and a flock of sheep. And that's when the war begun for me. I only spoke Dutch, and the Neelys only spoke English.
Well, that must have been terribly frustrating.
Especially for Mrs. Neely. She would ask for a frying pan, and I would bring back a pot hook or a fish net, not knowing any better, and she would be so angry. I usually tried to grab something soft because if I was wrong, she'd be sure to start beating me with it. They gave me plenty of food, but also plenty of whippings. There was one Sunday, Mr. Neely called me out to the barn. He was inside with a bundle of rods prepared in the embers, bound together with cords. He tied my hands behind my back and gave me the most cruel whipping I was ever tortured with. He whipped me until the flesh was deeply torn and blood streamed from my wounds at 9 years old, and the scars remain to the present day to testify to the fact.
Please stop.
You quitting already.
No, it's just...
You wanted me to tell my story. Well, I'm going to tell it then, ugly and all.
Yes. All right, of course. I just felt a little faint for a moment. Go ahead.
And now when I hear them tell of whipping women, it makes my flesh crawl and the very hair rise on my head. In those hours of trouble, I did not forget Mama's instructions to go to God in all my trials, and I obeyed. I spoke to that stranger in the sky and expected to receive an answer, for Mama told me I should. I even asked for him to give me a new master, and it wasn't long before he did.
Martin Shriver, the fisherman and tavern owner.
Yes, that's right. I lived with the Shriver family for about a year and a half, and it was a welcome change from the nightmare of the Neelys. They were wild folks, though, and I'm ashamed to admit my moral character was wounded. I even learned to curse and to smoke a pipe from Mr. Shriver.
Sojourner, do you still smoke that thing?
On occasion.
But haven't you heard the scripture that says, nothing unclean will enter the kingdom of heaven?
Why, yes, I have heard tell of that.
Sojourner, if you smoke, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven, because nothing is so unclean as the breath of a smoker. What do you say to that?
I expect to leave my breath behind when I go to heaven. But if it really bothers you, I'll put it away for now. My time with the Shrivers was short, and soon I was sold to Mr. John Dumont, where I worked for another 20 years or so. 20 years is a long time. I'm not sure where to start.
Were the Dumonts kind to you?
Kind? No. It's complicated. Mr. Dumont used to hold me in a fairly high regard. He used to say I could do as much work as half a dozen common folks and do it well. But Mrs. Dumont, she felt differently. This is hard to talk about.
Start with something small. What did you do for them day to day?
I worked in the fields, took care of the animals. I did most of the cooking. That's where I learned to peel potatoes. In fact, I got a story about those potatoes. There were these two other hired girls there with me, white girls. One of them, Kate, hated me and did everything in her power to grind me down. She would whisper cruel things to me as she passed and was always looking for ways to talk bad about me to Mrs. Dumont. Then, one morning, for no reason I could see, the potatoes I cooked for breakfast came over all dirty and dingy.
I bet I can guess Mrs. Dumont's reaction. John, just look at these potatoes. It's absolutely disgraceful. A fine specimen of that Belle's handiwork. I told you she's slothful and careless, and now you see what I mean.
You've got her down perfect. It's like she's sitting here in the room. I had done everything I could to make those potatoes nice and had no idea what had gone wrong. That night, little Getty, the master's daughter, told me that if I would wake her up early the next morning, she would watch the potatoes while I did the milking. Getty had not been watching long when Kate appeared and told her to leave the room. Getty refused and stayed tucked in the corner. But Kate came sweeping up and took the ashes from the fire and dumped them in the potato kettle.
With Getty right there. Kate had more wickedness than common sense.
Getty ran out to her father and called out, "Poppy, oh Poppy, Kate has been putting ashes in the potato kettle. It wasn't Belle's fault. She wiped them clean."
A triumph of justice. Was Kate punished?
No. I was, later, by Mrs. Dumont for dragging her daughter into my problems.
But that's not fair.
There was no fairness in her. But for some reason, I expected more from Mr. Dumont. From that time, I worked even harder to please that man. I often went without sleep and worked through the night just to get as much work done as I could. The others didn't like that. It made them look bad, but I didn't care. You see, I thought that Mr. Dumont was sort of like God, that he could see me at all times. And if I failed at a task, I would confess it to him, believing he already knew, and hope for his forgiveness. I believed that my position as a slave in his house was right and honorable, and any trouble I'd gotten into I brought on myself.
But surely you see differently now.
I see I'm not a slave no more.
Yes, but for when you were and for the many who still are, it is wrong. So wrong. You see, don't you, the absurdity of the arrogant claims of the masters, putting themselves above beings designed by God to be as free as kings, and the stupidity of the slave for in one moment admitting the validity of those claims.
Stupidity?
I'm sorry,
I don't call it stupidity. It was obedience, what I had been taught since I was a baby. I was faithful and true to my master, and it helped me be faithful and true to God.
But that very obedience and submission is why your people continue to be oppressed and denied their rights.
My mama always taught me to obey the master of the house. And that's the same thing I taught my own children. Lord knows how many times I let my children go hungry rather than secretly take the bread I couldn't ask for. It wouldn't be honest or right.
That's just it. The slave masters treat you as less than human and then say that you are the evil one if you try to reach out for something more. They want you so obedient that you never try to reach out for something that's not your own, and then you find out that nothing is your own, not even your own thoughts, your own body.
What are you talking about? You are a white woman who's lived all her life in safety and comfort. You've never been a slave. Why do you think you know this story better than me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to take over your story. I know it's yours.
Do you?
Yes, of course. I suppose it just hit a nerve. My father wants to marry me off to a businessman from Cambridge whom I've never met. I won't do it. He may think he has some sort of power to decide that for me, but he's about to find out very differently. Obedience. Did you know there are some women who believe so firmly in the authority of their husbands that they are no better than slaves in their own homes? Just yesterday, I heard a woman say she couldn't make a decision because her opinion had gone west on a business trip. She'd given her husband complete authority over her very mind.
Sounds like she didn't have much of one to begin with.
Which is precisely why I will never get married. I'll not give up my rights to my own thoughts, to my body, to the meager worldly things I own to a man, just because he happens to keep me warm on a cold night.
Never is a mighty long time. You might come to change your mind if the right man come along, or if the night gets cold enough.
I think not.
Sometimes all it takes is a certain twinkle in an eye, and everything you thought you knew turns upside down.
You felt like that with your husband?
No, not with Thomas. We were married because we were told to be married. We got along all right, but he didn't twinkle. No, this was before I married Thomas.
Tell me.
His name was Robert. He was tall and strong and handsome. His nose would wrinkle up like a rabbit's when he smiled, and his laugh was so smooth, like wind in the pine trees. Robert was owned by a mean, hateful man with no heart in him at all. He didn't want Robert coming anywhere near me because he knew if we got married and had children, they'd belong to Mr. Dumont. He didn't want to lose his property.
Well, that's despicable.
One day, Robert came to see me, but that man followed behind and commenced beating him. He would have killed him right there, but Mr. Dumont came out and told him that he'd have no more blood spilled on his property. So he tied Robert's hands behind his back and led him home, with Mr. Dumont following behind to make sure he wasn't killed.
Well, did he recover?
I never saw Robert again. But I heard he took a wife from the Catlin household, and shortly after I married Thomas. I didn't love Thomas, but he wasn't unkind to me, and we lived together as husband and wife until I left that place.
Well, you had children with him.
5. James, Diana, Peter, Elizabeth, and Sophia. And I'll tell you, I was pleased to increase Mr. Dumont's property. It made me more valuable to him.
That's so sad. And I'm sorry, but it's wrong-headed. How are we supposed to convince people about the evils of slavery and to join the abolitionist movement if you keep going on about how devoted you were to your master?
Mr. Dumont is a decent man. That's the truth of my story, and it's my story we're telling.
I just don't understand. You told me how much you hated white folks and blamed them for all the evils in the world, but it sounds to me as if you were perfectly content to stay with the Dumonts forever.
No, not content. I told you my relationship with Mr. Dumont is complicated. My time there was difficult and confusing in so many ways, but I don't know. I'm beginning to think you're not the right person to help me tell this story after all.
What do you mean? Why not?
You came over all faint when I talked about whipping, and you're too delicate to share a room with a pipe. You have your own ideas about slave life and what it means. I'm not sure you're ready to hear what all really happened at the Dumonts. The things that went on in that house.
Oh, they were of a delicate nature.
That's a fancy way of saying it. I didn't know of the way things were between men and women, or the ways that women can hurt and shame another woman. I was a child in my head, if not in my body, but there were things in that house that I had to do that I never even... But it happened, and if we're writing about my life, then it needs to go in the book, doesn't it?
Sojourner, I am so sorry, but some things we simply can't write about. It wouldn't be proper, and well, no one would buy the book.
Make up your mind. First you saying I'm painting too pretty a picture, then you say it's not proper. You can't simply change a story to make it fit what you want. The truth is the truth. It needs to be told.
The truth is what I say it is.
What?
What we say it is. Or at least care needs to be taken in the way that we say it. Perhaps the details aren't as important as acknowledging your suffering and the fact that you were able to move past that.
Sounds to me like you're trying to put a bonnet on a pig.
I'm trying to write a book.
But it's not your book!
Fine, you want to do it yourself? Go ahead.
No.
You think you can do a better job, so go ahead and take the pen.
No, Olive, I'm not going to take the pen. I can't do it better. I can't do it at all. I never learned to read. Nor write neither.
You can't.
Me, a grown woman. Ridiculous, isn't it?
No. No, I never. How do you know all those Bible verses if you can't read?
I have people read to me. Children are the best. They don't explain it when I ask them to read it over. They just read it over and over again until it goes all the way into my heart. For man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God.
That's a... I'm sorry, I had no...
Don't be sorry.
I could teach you. You're smart enough to learn. We can send for some of the primers. Prudence
Stop,
used...
Olive. I don't need you to fix me. I don't need to read as long as I can listen and think. And I don't need to write because I've got you.
Do you still want me to write?
You figure the best way to tell it. You're the one who's good with words.
Let me think for a minute. How's this? From this source arose a long series of trials in the life of our heroine, which we must pass over in silence, some from motives of delicacy, and others because the relation of them might inflict undeserved pain on some now living, whom Isabel remembers only with esteem and love. Therefore, the reader will not be surprised if our narrative appears somewhat tame at this point, and may rest assured that it is not for want of facts, as the most thrilling incidents of this portion of her life are from various motives suppressed. Will that do?
It will. And you'll be pleased to hear that I finally got fed up with Mr. Dumont and his worthless praise of my hard work. He broke a promise to me and made me see how foolish it was to keep feeding myself with the idea that a slave could find any justice or fairness in this world.
What was the promise?
Freedom. A year earlier than required by the new law because of my hard work and devotion to him. I was to be released on July 4th, 1827, but when the day came... Here, you did a fair imitation of Mrs. Dumont. Let's see if you can do Mr. Dumont, too. am here to receive my free papers, Mr. Dumont. I'm grateful for all you have done for me, and I am ready to set out on my own.
Belle, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. As you know, you injured your hand last year, and it slowed you down dreadfully. Why, I've hardly gotten a full day's work from you since. I'm afraid you haven't lived up to your end of the agreement.
Mr. Dumont, you can't go back on your word. I worked all that time lifting and carrying and spinning things which were near impossible with that injured hand, but I did the very best I could.
No, Belle. I'm afraid you'll have to wait until next year. You owe me another year's work, and you'll have to see it through. Besides, I need you. How will I run this place without you? Now, there's 100 pounds of wool waiting to be spun in the barn, so you'd best get busy.
A great anger and bitterness rose up inside me. The injustice of it felt like poison in my gut, and I remembered all the times I went without food or sleep or comfort just to please this man. A wave of hatred like I had never known rolled over before me, but I stayed through the hard work of the harvesting season just to make sure my conscience was clean. Then I began to plan how I would take my leave. God, I'm afraid to go at night. And in the day, everyone who sees me will know who I am. What if I go just before day dawns, so that way the people that see me in the light won't know it's me? Yes, God, thank you for that thought.
So, perceiving that the plan was from God, she proceeded to act upon it, and one fine morning, just a little before daybreak, Sojourner Truth departed the Dumont's house, her infant daughter Sophia on one arm, her wardrobe on the other, wrapped in a cloth handkerchief, her other children following along behind.
Well, no, I only took Sophia with me. I had to leave Thomas and the other children at the Dumonts.
Leave them? How could you leave your children?
It was one of the great heartbreaks of my life, but I knew I couldn't take care of them all on the road. I hoped to meet up with them again someday, and in the meantime trusted that God would watch over them. I made my way to the Van Wagner household, who I'd met some time before and knew they would be kind to me. They took us in and gave me some work.
But it wasn't long before Dumont came after you.
I didn't go too far, as I didn't want him to have too much trouble looking after me.
Shockingly, considering...
Never mind that. You do Dumont again.
Well, Belle, so you run away from me.
No, Mr. Dumont, I did not run away from you. I walked away by daylight, and all because you promised me a year of my time.
Well, you must come back with me.
No, I won't go back with you.
You won't? You surprise me, Belle. Well, I shall take the child.
No, you won't take this child.
Belle, you are still my property.
At which point Mr. Van Wagner stepped in and told Mr. Dumont that he had never been in the practice of buying or selling slaves and did not believe in slavery, but rather than see me taken back by force, he would buy my services for the balance of a year.
Agreed. $20 for Belle and $5 for the child.
Mr. Van Wagner told me not to call him master, as there is but one master, and he who is your master is my master. This was a mighty change and took some getting used to in my mind. And after a year, I was a free woman under the law. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, don't you know? No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And it was around this time that I had a vision of the Lord God that began a great change inside me. I was standing in the garden when, with all the suddenness of a flash of lightning, God revealed himself to me, showing me that he was all over and there was no place that he was not. I felt that if he looked direct at me, I'd be blown out like a lamp so that no spark of me remained. "Oh God," I cried, "I did not know you were so big." I wanted to talk to him, but I was too small, too vile. I thought maybe there's someone who could speak to him for me, someone more worthy, but who has the greatness to stand before him. At just that moment, a friend appeared to stand between me and God, and I felt so relieved and refreshed, like on a hot day when an umbrella opens up between my scorching head and the burning sun. "Who are you?" I cried. "I know you and I don't know you." And at length, an answer came to me saying distinctly, "It is Jesus." Now, I had heard of Jesus before, but I always thought he was just another important man like Washington or Lafayette, but no, he stood before me. And he loved me, and he'd always loved me, and I'd never even known it. He stood between me and God was no longer a terror to me. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And that, Olive, was the great change I was talking of a while back, where I began to see that if God was so big and so full of love, then there was no room for all that hate inside me.
And you forgave everyone who'd hurt you, and your family, just like that.
Not all at once. It came over time. Whenever I would feel hurt or remember the pain of the past, God would reveal himself to me again and remind me of his love. And little by little, I began to feel love for everyone.
Even Mrs. DeMond.
Someday, she's going to have to answer for all she's done. I'll trouble myself with it no more and leave her fate in his hands. Don't get me wrong, I made plenty more mistakes and have a lot to learn, still do. We're all just doing the best we can here in this world of sorrow.
I'm not sure I'll ever have the strength to forgive like that.
It's not my strength, it's his. And I've had to lean on it more times than I can count. And speaking of judgment, let's write about the first time I took a white man to court and won. This here's the judge's bench. You stand there next to it. And here's where those white men were. And here's me.
Hear ye, hear ye. We are here to examine the case of an Isabel Van Wagner versus Dr. Solomon Gedney. Put your hand on the Bible. Do you swear that the case you're about to give in front of the court now is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do, as God is my witness.
So your complaint to the judge.
Well, Mr. Judge, Your Honor, I am here to get my boy back. My son Peter was sold to this man, Dr. Solomon Gedney, who sent him to Alabama.
Well, it is true that no slaves should be sold out of New York, as here in New York they are legally bound to be freed at the age of 21. This is not the case in Alabama, and if Peter is on there, he will remain a slave indefinitely.
So he had no right to take him there, and I knew I had to get him back. So here we are, Your Honor.
And here is your son.
Oh, Peter, my little boy, my lost child. Why are you crying?
Well, he says he doesn't know you, and he wishes to remain with his kind master. What do you say to that?
Oh, sir, look at the scars on his forehead and cheeks. Look at the bruises and frightened look in his eyes. How can we know what other scars might be where they can't be seen?
Order in the court. I believe there is truth in this woman's words. I see a familial resemblance between this boy and this woman, and hereby say that Peter Van Wagner be returned to the care of his mother and should be kept only by her. This court is now adjourned.
A victory for the truth. And the Lord saw it fit to deliver him into my hands. And I'm told I am the first black woman to ever win such a case against a white man. And a few years later, I did it again.
Another court case?
This was after I'd moved to New York and worked for a few different folks there. I got myself involved in a situation that got pretty complicated, but I'm pleased to say that the Lord helped me find my way out in the end. Here, you be the judge again. Your Honor, I'm here to bring charges of slander against this man, Mr. Benjamin Folger, who has accused me of attempting to poison him and his wife. I am innocent of these charges, and I wish to have my reputation and good name restored.
Proceed.
I kept house for the Folgers and did the washing for a man who called himself Matthias the Prophet, who also stayed there. I got to know everyone pretty well during my time there. I could hear and see pretty much everything that went on, but didn't get drawn in too far. Matthias would assign roles to everyone based on what he perceived in their spirits, and lucky for me, my role was invisible black servant. So another guest, a Mr. Elijah Pearson, started getting real sick. So one night he had blackberries at dinner and got all vomitous ill. By morning he was dead, and the doctors, who arrived after it was too late to do anything, said he was poisoned. And then Mr. Folger started saying that I'd been trying to poison him and his wife, but I think he's just trying to shift blame onto me and make me a scapegoat for Mr. Elijah Pearson's murder. He believes since I am a black woman, I won't be believed by any court, but I've got some documents here talking about my character that I would like you to see, Your Honor.
This is to certify that Isabella, this colored woman, lived with me since the year 1810, and that she's always been a good and faithful servant, and the 18 years that she was with me, I always found her to be perfectly honest. I have always heard her well spoken of by everyone that has employed her. John J. Dumont.
And there are lots of others there too, Your Honor, and Mr. Folger doesn't have an evidence against me.
As Mr. Folger has offered no defense in this case, we are left to draw the inference that his claim was a groundless statement of falsehood and of the most atrocious nature. The court hereby sides with the plaintiff in this libel suit and awards Isabella Van Wagner $125.
Once again, the truth prevailed, and $125 went a long way to set my mind at ease, especially since the rest of the money I had been earning had gone into Matthias's hands for the good of the kingdom. I believed so much in him and the goodness of those folks. Broke my heart to see how it all ended. After that, I began to think that New York was just another Sodom and Gomorrah, and that I needed to head east to preach about Jesus and warn people about listening to false prophets.
And so you changed your name and you started a new life.
My name is no longer Isabella Van Wagner, for that was the name of a slave and a lost soul. The Spirit calls, and I must go, traveling up and down the land, being assigned to people and warning them of their sins. My name is now Sojourner. And because everybody else has two names, God gave me truth, as I was to declare the truth to people.
On the 1st of June, 1843, Sojourner Truth departed New York City, taking the rising sun as her only compass and guide, and remembering Lot's wife and her fate, and hoping to avoid that, she departed and dared not look back to the evil city which she was fleeing. And as she journeyed, she spoke to anyone who would listen about the glories of God.
Here you are talking about being changed in the twinkling of an eye. If the Lord should come, he'd change you to nothing, for there is nothing to you. You seem to be expecting to go away to some parlor or way up somewhere, and when the wicked had been burnt, you were going to return in triumph to walk over their ashes. This is to be your New Jerusalem. Now, I can't see anything so very nice in that, coming back to a place as must as this will be. Besides, if the Lord comes and burns as you say he will, I'm not going away. No, I'm going to stand here and stand the fire like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Jesus will walk with me through the fire and protect me. Nothing belonging to God can burn, no more than God himself. Such shall have no need to escape the fire. Are you to tell me that God's children can't stand fire?
And you preached and sang your way here to us. Thousands of people must have heard you by now.
Seems like I can't really stop. Even after coming to a place like Northampton where I thought I finally found a quiet resting place. Seems like I just keep going, whether people love what I have to say or if it makes them angry. It makes no difference to me. I just keep doing what the Lord's telling me to do.
With all her fervor and enthusiasm and speculation, her religion is not tinctured in the least with gloom. No doubt, no hesitation, no despondency spreads a cloud over her soul, but all is bright, clear, positive, and at times ecstatic. She puts her trust in God, and for him she looks for good and not evil. She believes that perfect love casts out all fear.
Laid it on a little thick there at the end, didn't you?
What'll sell books. Sojourner, it's happening. It's really happening.
Shut the door, you're letting in a draft.
The meeting will be in Worcester at the end of October. That's only a couple of days' journey. We have to go. You will come, won't you?
What are you talking about, Olive? I believe I've just had enough about going to meetings. I believe I've said all I had to say. Besides, I'm just getting settled here in my new house.
Well, I know you are, and I know how nice it feels for you to say, my new house. Do you want to say it again?
Fine. My new house. Who would have thought this little book about my life could finance a cozy place like this? I'm perfectly content with my feet up and my knitting.
You can't change the world with knitting patterns, Sojourner. Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton have finally done it. First, Seneca Falls, then Rochester, and now the first National Women's Rights Convention. We can't miss it. They may even ask me to speak as the amanuensis of your narrative, after all. They may be interested in what I have to say.
The what of my narrative?
Amanuensis is someone who writes for someone else.
They make up words for just about anything, don't they?
History is being made, Sojourner. Will you come?
Seems like this old body don't just get to sit down anywhere for much long.
Well, Sojourner, one who travels without a permanent home. Turns out I wasn't invited to speak after all. Lucretia Mott spoke, and Frederick Douglass, and Sojourner Truth. She spoke twice.
Turns out I had some things to say after all. Sisters, I'm not sure on what you were after. If women want any more rights than what they got, why don't they just take them and not be talking about them?
Apparently, the complexities of attaining equal rights for women was yet to be revealed to Sojourner.
Seems some of you are only interested in women's rights if those women are the same color as you. Now, a resolution has been passed to include the trampled women of the plantation and your attempt to see women vote, get an education, and own property. But there's been some loud criticism to that idea. Some of you are only worried about if a divorced woman can keep her jewelry or if women should be allowed to wear bloomers, but here's what's clear to me. We need equality before the law without distinction of sex or color.
You were brilliant, Sojourner. They were hanging on every word.
That's because I'm the only black woman who spoke. I'm a curiosity. Why are you looking so gloomy?
What? No, I'm fine. I just wanted to tell you. Wendell Phillips and William Garrison have invited you on their lecture circuit. They're going all throughout New England, New York, and possibly even further west. They think your voice will make a great difference in the movement.
Well, I suppose that'll be all right if people really want to hear what I have to say. Why don't you come along?
Well, they didn't ask for me. You're the one they want. Go tell your story. Sell some more books.
Olive, no one would have heard my story if you hadn't written it down.
The writing is done now. It's time for action. Off you go then.
I'm pleading for my people, a poor downtrodden race, who dwell in freedom's boasted land with no abiding place. I'm pleading that my people may have their rights restored, for they have long been toiling and yet have no reward.
What you have to say is no more important than a flea.
Well, then I hope to keep you scratching.
Woman, you must stop this bold and sinful mockery of preaching. You must be reconciled to God.
Reconciled to God? Why, I ain't got nothing against God. Why should I be reconciled to him? God always been mighty good to me. He delivered me out of slavery and has kept mighty good care of me since. You ministers would have kept me in bondage. Why, I ain't got nothing against him.
You dare come into our church meeting and attack us for our reluctance to condemn the white man's God-given right to own slaves. Why, I'm afraid he would knock me down at any moment for listening to such blasphemy.
God knock you down. Don't be scared. I don't expect God ever heard from you.
Why, you anti-slavery types are nothing but women and donkeys.
You know, I heard a story about a man named Balaam in the Bible who also got mighty mad at a donkey. That donkey was carrying Balaam along and then stopped in the middle of the road because of an angel that God put in its path. But it seemed to me it were the donkey and not the man who understood what God was really trying to do.
Well, the Bible don't say nothing about the Constitution. Are you against the Constitution, old woman?
Well, children, I talk to God and God talks to me. This morning I was out walking and climbed over a fence. I saw the wheat holding its head looking so big. I go up to it and I take hold of the wheat. Would you believe it? There was no wheat there. I says, God, what's the matter with this wheat? And he says, Sojourner, it's got a little weevil in it.
What's that got to do with the Constitution?
Well, I hear talk of the Constitution and the rights of man. I go up to the Constitution and I take hold of it. It looks mighty big and I feel for my rights, but they are not there. I say, God, what else is Constitution? And he says, Sojourner, it's got a little weevil in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frances Gage, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us here in Akron for the Ohio Women's Rights Convention. You have listened most patiently and attentively today to many speakers, some of whom support our cause for women's rights and others whom are against it. You've heard clergymen claim that it was God's will for women to be less than men, as women sinned first in the garden and are therefore inferior to men, and for blacks to be a subservient race. You've heard it stated that a woman's job is at home, raising her children. You've heard all these things and more.
May I speak?
Sojourner Truth.
I have a few words I want to say about this matter. I am a woman's rights. I have as much muscle as any man and can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed, and can any man do more than that? I have heard much about the sexes being equal. I can carry as much as any man and can eat as much too if I can get it. I'm as strong as any man that is now. As for intellect, all I have to say is, if a woman have a pint and a man a quart, why can't she have her little pint full? You need not be afraid to give us our rights for fear we will take too much, for we can't take more than our little pint to hold. The poor men seem to be all in confusion and don't know what to do. You will have your rights and they won't be too much trouble. I can't read, but I can hear. I have learned from the Bible and have learned that Eve caused man to sin. If woman upset the world, do give her a chance to set it right side up again. You have heard the lady talk about Jesus and how he never besought woman from him, and she is right. When Lazarus died, Mary and Martha came to Jesus in faith and love and besought him to raise their brother from the dead. And Jesus wept, and Lazarus came forth. And how came Jesus into this world? By God who created him, and woman who bore him. Man, where is your part? But the women are coming up, blessed be God, and a few of the men are coming up with them. But man is in a tight space. The poor slave is on him, the woman is coming on him, and he is surely between a hawk and a buzzard. Now, I know how much it annoys you to hear a black woman speak about justice and freedom. Blacks and women been put down for so long, nobody thought we'd ever get back up again. But we will come up again, and now here I am.
Sojourner, you're back. How was the tour? I've heard so many reports already, and you're in the papers all the time now. Look, the Weekly Chronicle, the Liberator, the...
Words. It makes me tired. 2 years was long enough without a break. I needed to see my children and my friends.
What have you got there?
I had some pictures taken. I thought I'd take them out the next time I go on the road and see if I can sell them to folks.
Next time. Already planning another grand tour. I sell the shadow to support the substance. Clever wording.
I learned from you. What's that you're holding?
It's a book. It's called Uncle Tom's Cabin. It's absolutely wonderful. It says everything I have always wanted to say about the evils of slavery and the treatment of black people, and it's a response to the Fugitive Slave Act.
Good for you, Olive. You wrote this and got it published while I was away.
No, a woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote it, not me. She lives not far from here in Andover. In fact, she's asked that you come visit her while you're home. It's an honor. She's quite a famous writer.
I'll be happy to visit her. I could have her put an autograph on the book for you.
Yes, of course, that would be perfect. When do you head out again?
Soon. Very soon, but not for long. I'm getting up there in years, and I expect folks will be tired of me before much longer.
Well, you underestimate how many people love you, my friend, as usual. And it was 6 years before I heard from her again.
Dear Olive, I'm writing you this letter through a neighbor here in my new place of residence in Harmonia, Michigan. I'm more than 60 years old now, and the traveling life has become wearisome. I have family here, my daughter Elizabeth and grandson Sammy, and there are lots of other folks settled in this area. The mayor of nearby Battle Creek even worked on the Underground Railroad, so there are lots of like minds. I feel content now that I will be able to leave the standard up to everyone else, while I sit on the porch and listen to Sammy read to me from the Bible. Not explain it, just read.
Sojourner, I write to you today with a heavy heart, having just read the Supreme Court's recent decision on the Dred Scott case. I wasn't sure you'd hear about it up in Harmonia, so I thought I'd better write. A slave living in a free state, Dred Scott sued for his liberty, but the court has decided that slaves are property and therefore not citizens and haven't the legal right to sue. I fear the repercussions this decision will have on our cause.
Dear Olive, Dred Scott has made it clear that the Lord isn't quite done with me yet. Slavery must be destroyed, root and branch. So, I have uprooted myself from the porch and gone out on the road again. I had an interesting encounter in Indiana with one I hesitate to call a gentleman, who insisted I was a man impersonating a woman due to my deep voice and bold manner. I'm somewhat ashamed to admit that I proved him wrong by revealing a woman's body beneath my blouse. My friends say my age has made me indiscreet. It is difficult for me to rise some mornings, but once I'm up, I can go as long as a woman half my age.
Dear Sojourner, I pray you will continue to send me anecdotes of your time on the road, as I fear it is my duty to send you the heavy news of the country at large. Some radicals have begun to go to extremes in their desire to see slavery abolished. One such, with the innocuous name of John Brown, recently led a raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia. He planned to capture arms at the military arsenal and free slaves by force, but Brown was captured and hanged. Many Southerners have accused Brown of being a maniacal murderer, but the grassroots support for him within our movement has been overwhelming. I'm fearful of the divide I see growing in our country.
Dear Olive, I do not live in such a sheltered existence as you seem to think. My grandson Sammy read to me every detail of John Brown's trial and killing. He also read to me about the presidential elections. I especially liked hearing about Mr. Abraham Lincoln and his thoughts on slavery. A house divided amongst itself cannot stand. This nation cannot permanently endure half slave and half free. I do not believe the Union will dissolve. I do not believe the house will fall. But I do believe it will cease to be divided. Well, I think he's just about right. The slave owners in the South are real unhappy about his election. They say 11 states have broken off and formed a confederacy. I feel like the house is a shaking.
Dear Sojourner, we are at war. God have mercy on us all.
Dear Olive, the divide continues. Even the army don't want black folks in it. Many blacks have volunteered to join the fight to end slavery, but were turned away. But did you hear? Mr. President Abraham Lincoln stepped in and ordered a black union to be allowed to fight. From all over the country, black men have volunteered to join the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, including my own grandson, James. I only wish I could have joined them. James has stepped forth to redeem the white people of the curse that God has sent upon them, and if I could, I would be on deck as the Joan of Arc to lead the army of the Lord, for now is the hour and the day for the colored man to save his nation.
And here I sit, knitting socks. I even rewrote some of the words to the battle hymn of the Republic, especially for the black soldiers. She's a writer now.
We are the valiant soldiers who've enlisted for the war. We are fighting for the Union. We are fighting for the law. We can shoot to rebel farther than a white man ever saw as we go marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah, as we go marching on.
On January 1st, 1843, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation ending slavery throughout the land.
We all gathered in nearby Battle Creek, and there was singing and dancing and many joyful speeches. As it happened, I celebrated so much that word got out that I had rejoiced myself right into the kingdom of God.
In fact, a few days later, Sojourner suffered a stroke, and rumor had spread that she had died. But fortunately, I was able to prove it was only a rumor by visiting her bedside. The news of her death was printed in the Anti-Slavery Standard, and Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote a piece memorializing Sojourner and remembering their meeting 10 years before. People all around read this article titled "The Libyan Sibyl." and heard about Sojourner Truth and her cause.
Now, what on earth is a Libyan Sibyl?
Sibyl comes from an ancient Greek word meaning prophetess.
Sort of like the prophets of the Bible, hearing God's truth and speaking it to the people.
Yes, like that. In classical Greek mythology, the Libyan Sibyl told of the day when that which is hidden shall be revealed. Libyan means she was from Africa.
She wrote in this article that I'm a full-blooded African. Now, I'm not from Africa, I'm from New York. She knows that. And what's that she had me saying?
Well, honey, the Lord bless you. I just thought I'd like to come and have a look at you. You've heard of me, I reckon.
Well, I don't talk like that, calling folks honey all the time. And how she describes Sammy again?
She calls him the fattest, jolliest, woolly-headed little specimen of Africa that one can imagine.
All of that article is barely even true. She wrote about someone completely different she made up in her mind.
Well, she also says you're dead.
Pretty sure that's not true either.
She goes on to recount much of the same story you told in the narrative.
Why then people should read from that and get the truth of it?
Well, apparently the truth is slippery. There's another article here by Mrs. Frances Gage. Remember her? She published a version of your speech from the Ohio Women's Rights Convention.
A version? Uh-oh. All right, let's hear it.
I'm not sure I can read it the way it's written out here, but I'll try. Well, chillin', what there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I taint betwixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North. All of talking about rights, the white men will be in a fix pretty soon, but what's all this here talking about? That man over there say that woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place, and ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man can head me, and ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man, when I could get it, and bear the lash as well, and ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children. And
all right, that's enough. Just stop. 13 children. I only remember having 5. I wonder what happened to the rest.
Sold off in slavery, apparently. Well, she got most of the main ideas right, I suppose.
What was wrong with the words the way I said them the first time?
I believe she's trying to make a symbol out of you. She and Mrs. Stowe both, an idea to hold up to champion the cause of women's rights.
Why didn't she write a storybook then called Ain't I a Symbol? They're just 2 more white women trying to turn my life into something it wasn't. I thought I'd gotten past that when I knocked some sense into you.
That was uncalled for. True, but uncalled for. Don't you understand? It's about more than just you now. You've become an important figure in the women's movement, and these are popular articles written by famous women. That means that people all over the country will know who you are and what you stand for.
Well, they might know somebody, but I'm not sure it's me. I'm a real person, not some made-up Southern African prophet, honey child mammy.
Maybe that's an easier image for people to understand than trying to get to know who you really are.
Well, maybe people shouldn't be looking for the easy way all the time.
Well, not if they want to understand you. Where do you think you're going?
I have a little trip I need to make.
A trip? Where?
Washington, D.C. I'm going to visit the president.
Of course you are.
He's probably tired of important figures and could use some encouragement from a real person for a change. There are a lot of folks on one side hating him for trying to free the slaves, and a lot of folks on the other side hating him for not doing it fast enough. I figured I could go talk to him like he was a real person too, who might be having a hard time right now.
You're a touch crazy, you know that? But you're probably right. Please travel safely. It's a dangerous world out there.
Dear Olive, the president was seated at his desk. He then arose, gave me his hand, took a bow, and said, "I am pleased to see you." I said to him, "Mr. President, when you first took your seat, I feared you would be torn to pieces, for I likened you unto Daniel, who was thrown into the lion's den. And I said, if you were not torn to pieces, I knew that it would have been God who had saved you. And I said that if he would spare me, I would get to see you before the 4 years expired. And he has done so, so now I'm here to see you for myself."
He congratulated me on my having been spared, Then I said,
I'm thankful to have known you, for you are the best president who has ever taken the seat. He replied thus,
I expect you reference my having emancipated the slaves by my proclamation. But, said he, mentioning the names of several of his predecessors, and among them emphatically that of Washington, they were all just as good and would have done just as he had done if the time had come. Then I said,
I am grateful that you were the instrument selected by God and the people to do it. As I was taking my leave, he arose and gave me his hand and said he would be pleased to have me call again. And I felt that I was in the presence of a friend. And now I thank God from the bottom of my heart that I have always advocated for his cause so openly and boldly.
Dear Sojourner, I'm sure you are rejoicing, as I am, at President Lincoln's election to a second term in office, as well as the wonderful news of General Robert E. Lee surrendering to General Ulysses S. Grant, thus ending the war. Our prayers have been answered, and I see nothing but joyous days ahead.
Dear Olive, it was only 6 days after the writing of your last letter that Mr. President Abraham Lincoln was shot to death watching that play. After all he'd been through, who would have thought a theater was the most dangerous place he could be? The news put me in despair. No man did more for the cause of black Americans than Mr. Abraham Lincoln. But I write now with you to celebrate the passing of the 13th Amendment, ridding this country of slavery once and for all. The weevil in the Constitution has been killed off at last. Of course, old habits die slowly, and I must tell you of yet another case I have managed to win. Some time ago, I was preparing to board a streetcar with a white friend, Laura Haviland. As we were preparing to board, the conductor shoved me back, demanding me to let the lady board first. I spoke up, saying, I am a lady too.
Do not push her, sir. You cannot push her off this car.
Why, he says, does she belong to you?
No, she belongs to humanity.
And then he pushed me against the door and injured my shoulder. I had him arrested for assault, and yet again won my case in court. By the time the trial was over, so many blacks were daring to ride inside streetcars that the inside of the car started to look like salt and pepper. All my love, Sojourner.
Dear Sojourner, I am proud and thankful that you have made your power felt with such little book education. I'm glad to know you and to feel like I have been a small part of your story.
Dear Olive, God has put new glasses in the window of my soul. If there is still work for me to do in this life, I will persist until the day he calls me home. But I fear that may be soon. Come see me if you can.
Sojourner, are you awake?
That you, Olive? My eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
It is indeed. You look well.
It's a little too late to start lying to me now, Olive.
I was so sorry to hear about Sammy's unexpected death. He was too young. I know how dear he was to you.
Still is. But I'll be seeing him again soon.
Do you need me to do anything for you, to get you a glass of water, a new blanket?
No. You just sit there.
No, I'm no good at this. I never have been. I need there to be something I can do.
There is. You sit there and you hold my hand.
Yes, that's all I've ever been good for. Sitting, watching, witnessing that, and knitting socks.
Don't you be foolish now. All the time I've known you, you've been trying to write your name across the sky and let everybody know how important you are. It's time to see that you're no better or worse than any of the rest of us, especially me.
How can you say that? You've done so much. You've changed the country, helped rewrite the Constitution. You met the president.
And at the throne of God, I will be one of a million in a great cloud of witnesses just like you.
Are you afraid to die, Sojourner?
No, but I'm not going to die, Olive. I'm finally going home. Home like a shooting star. It was early in the morning. It was early in the morning. Just at the break of day. When he rose. When he rose. When he rose. And went to heaven on a cloud. I hope I told enough people.
Told them what, dear?
To be a follower of the Lord Jesus.
Those were the last words I ever heard her speak. Sojourner Truth died at approximately 86 years old, though papers still struggle to find the truth of her death, much as they did the truth of her life. Some reported her as being 114, some 108. Even her gravestone listed her age of death as 105. All these papers, letters, documents, facts, and we still can't get it right. Was she an ignorant slave or a brilliant orator, a backcountry preacher, or a mysterious prophet? An inflated paper hero, shadow, or substance? It depends on who you read and who you believe. Maybe that's the point. After all, Sojourner never relied on the written word to tell the truth of who she was. No, that was me. She lived her story. She moved through it. She grabbed it by the shoulders and she shook it until it listened. She looked people in the eye. She used her voice, her words, her body, her language to tell the truth of who she was. The truth. Maybe our truth can only be known by those who stand by and witness and how they choose to tell our story. Maybe it's not about our story at all. Maybe it's not about us at all. Maybe it's just about finding our way home.